Good evening and welcome to everyone to today's lovely session on sharing love stories, encounters with the divine. And sometimes when you think about encounters with the divine, it always seems so amazing and special. And so today we're going to have a lovely opportunity to have experiences of people who really have that beautiful connection with the divine. And so often we think that, we've been exposed to, physical relationships where we've experienced love for people. And that's a different experience, but having the experience of the divine is something quite different and quite special. And so this is something you'll definitely encounter with each of the different yogis who will share. So what we'd like to start off with is a lovely sharing by a famous poet, Khalil Gibran. And so join us as we listen to what he has to say about love. So I'm sure each of you really enjoyed that beautiful sharing, such depth and wisdom of many, many years ago. But wisdom is such that it defies time. And such is the love that God offers, the divine offers us. And so today we're going to have a beautiful sharing by Sister Saras, who's been with the Brahma Kumaris for many years. And something that I can recall from the very early days is her absolute love, her intoxication, her lightness of being, that she could easily just step into a dance very magically, and her cooking would be infused with that love. So whatever you ate, what she made, you also felt that lightness and that beauty. And so we'll have a lovely video where she shares her some of her experiences on her search for God. So let's listen to Sister Saras and enjoy her journey.
Om Shanti. From my childhood days, I was searching for God. At a young age, I became a vegetarian and did lots of devotion. Meanwhile, I was searching for something deeper. One day I saw a point of light on the wall in my bedroom. It looked so beautiful and made me feel so calm. That light always stayed in my mind's eye forever. When I was 50, I was introduced to Raj Yoga meditation. I traveled from Dhanasa to Newcastle to learn meditation. One day, during meditation, I experienced that light again, and this time I recognized it as God. Within a second, I fell in love with God. I never ever thought I would experience God in this life. This love is real magic. It made me make a promise to him in a second. I promised to God I will never leave him until I die. And that was 35 years ago. And no one can take me away from him. This falling in love with my spiritual father, the Supreme Soul, gives me a new understanding of life, a new spiritual birth, and a new knowledge that changed my life. This love had magic in it. This love taught me and gave me many experiences. I had found the ocean of love, the ocean of knowledge, the ocean of purity, and the ocean of all virtues and values. What more do I want? I found the Father, Teacher, and Sadguru in one. I discovered my one beloved. When I found God, the first thought I had, I wish I had wings to tell the world, God has come. I have found the real truth, who God is. I was lost and I never knew my true self. When God found me, He revealed it to me. One night, I kept on having the thought that I must ask Him how He is. And to my surprise, next morning, before I can ask Him, He asked me, how are you? That was true love. I couldn't believe it. I just sat in silence. My heart was full. Now, I have reached the age of 85, having gone through two major operations in my 80s. Knowing God, I was fearless. I knew that God was one power, one strength during that time. I did was remember Him and achieve success. Thanks to my beloved for finding me. Om Shanti.
Wow, that was such a beautiful experience by Saras Ben, and I'm sure you feel that connection that she has with God and the divine and the presence of the divine also in your life, because the divine is somebody who works according to understanding you and not just one kind of image for all, but somebody who's a real friend, somebody you can really connect with, you can share what's in your heart, and somebody who will understand you as you truly are. And so we have a little slideshow, and then I will introduce our next speaker. So the format would be such that I will share with you, the speaker, and then they'll have an opportunity to share with you. Thank you. So that was a very beautiful, reflective moment that took us into the experience of that divine friend, the one who makes the heart light and makes the heart dance. So I'd like to introduce Brother Charles, who's from KZN, and he's also been a yogi for many years. And my recollection and experience of Brother Charles is that he's a silent being, but filled with immense wisdom, and not just a wisdom that sits in the head, but a wisdom that actually expresses itself as you interact with him. He's a teacher by profession, and I think his students love having him as their teacher because he is a beautiful example. So, Brother Charles, a question. Knowing and experiencing are two different things. How have you moved from knowing about God to consolidating and internalizing the being that he is? So in the next few minutes, if you can just share with us, that would be wonderful.
Thank you, Kalpana Ben. I was thinking about, in terms of knowledge, usually the world has knowledge about matter, and we are very fortunate that we have knowledge of God as the soul. And so in terms of our knowledge, we're moving more and more into the subtlety of it. So it's the interaction and the interplay between God, ourselves, and matter. And that can be seen in a very theoretical way and something that's found in books, etc. But when you step away from the understanding of something to an experience of something, then this is where the feelings and your emotions are starting to come forth. So I think when you're looking at the aspect of knowledge, then it's a feeling that knowledge is something you understanding, because all of us come with some kind of background knowledge. And when godly knowledge is placed in the apron of your intellect, then it's at that time you start to rethink everything. So all the aspects are revisited, rethought, remodeled, remolded, etc. And so it moves from a very gross level to layers and layers of subtlety, just in terms of knowledge. And that taken further, then there's the experience of that. And the both are intertwined. So the knowledge of something, of the soul, of God, it deepens your understanding. And the understanding doesn't happen just immediately. It takes time, it takes effort. It makes you relook at something, to reflect on it, to ponder on it, to contemplate on it. And from that comes an experience. And why the experience? And why this experience is simply based on the truisms of knowledge. So on the basis of that truth, the subtleties, the powers, the virtues start to become very much part of ourselves, because it is very much a natural process of ourselves. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you so much. I think you just made us aware how important it is to ensure that knowledge itself becomes something that starts to turn into something that is with you and you can take into your day. And I think this is such a beautiful aspect that you shared. So thank you so much. And thank you for your presence with us tonight. So now what we're going to have is a beautiful song by Brother Ken. And perhaps you can experiment with the things that Brother Charles shared as you listen to the song, and feel also how the presence of the divine is something that you can also connect to.
The freshest rain could never bring the change of heart that you have brought in me. The sweetest song could never say the words of love I want to say to you. I wait upon this sunlit space, my one. Your voice so gently calling. You wait, your heart is opened up so wide to catch the love that's falling. deepest sea could never fill the empty parts that you have filled in me. The strongest force could never break the link of love that you have showed to me. I wait upon this windswept place, my one. My heart is flying, soaring. You wait upon your golden throne of light. Your voice so gently calling me to your land. The darkest clouds could never dim the orb of light you've planted in my mind. The hottest wind could never dry the well of hope that you have poured in me. I wait upon this sunlit space, my one. Your voice so gently calling. You wait, your heart is opened up so wide to catch the love that's falling from my eyes. I wait upon this windswept place, my one. My heart is flying, soaring. You wait upon your golden throne of light. Your voice so gently calling me to your land.
So, as we reflected, I'm sure we feel internally energized. So, I'd like to introduce Fatima DK, who's a playwright by profession. And, she kind of grew up in the era of apartheid, but then they used theater to highlight a lot of things to make people aware of the struggle. And as the years went by, she just refined her talents of being a playwright and storytelling. And she's a lovely soul. If you had to meet her, you'll just love being in her company. And so a question was asked to her, which she will share on: how do you experience the validation of, how does she know that she's conversing with God and that it's not just a figment of her imagination? How is this confirmed and validated? So let's hear what she has to say, something very beautiful.
I think one of the biggest challenges is creating a relationship with the divine, and the divine is not physical. The divine is a soul. But then also, I have come to learn that I too am a soul. But because I have a body, I can understand how the soul works through the body. For me, the first and most important thing was when I listened to the teachings of the Brahma Kumaris. They made sense. They made a lot of sense. And then I came to a point where I started reading the daily classes, which are in a sense like our scriptures, although they are not scriptures. And God made sense. He explained things in such a way that there was not one bit of a hesitation in me that this is God speaking, because God was speaking totally different things. He was talking about the soul, something that science has never had an opportunity to explain. And then on a daily basis, I began to believe and I began to love what I was hearing on a daily basis from these teachings. And they became a part of me. I asked myself, if I stopped studying in this organization, what would happen to me? And without hesitation, an answer came into my mind that since I live in Cape Town, which is at the foot of Africa, if I stepped off the earth, which is South Africa, I would go directly into the ocean and that will be the end of me. So what I'm trying to say, I felt that if I walked away from these teachings, I would be lost. On a daily basis, I am challenged in this life. And the divine, with whom I have a relationship with, always supplies me with help. And the help will always be in the daily classes that we read. And everything that God speaks about in the daily classes, especially if it has something to do with something that I am struggling with, the penny drops. Oh, this is why I was having this problem. I was not aware. And He makes me aware constantly. So I've come to love the title of God that we call Him the Innocent Lord, because God never gets tired of helping us to improve. On a daily basis, He is there to help me.
So thank you for that, Sister Fatima. And so for the next maybe few moments, let's just experiment ourselves and perhaps in your mind create a question. And during this sort of reflective time, just see what comes, what answer comes to you. And so this is our experiments with the divine. So I'd like to invite Brother Kirschlin, who's a young and enthusiastic soul who's known about Brahma Kumaris from very early on in his life. But he's a person, he's an engineer and he's an apprentice at this point in time. But I think what strikes me about Brother Kirschlin is that he has a very natural ability to allow his spirituality to infuse into his everyday sort of activities, and a very cheerful, very light-hearted, but a very deep soul for being physically young of age. And so I'd like to ask Brother Kirschlin a question. Brother Kirschlin, do you want to put your video on? So how do you experience the validation of being special in relationship without physically hearing and seeing your partner's attitude and feelings towards you? Perhaps you can share on this. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for the platform. And good day to everyone. This question is a bit of a tricky one. As we know, we don't really get much feedback from God in terms of physical feedback. We don't really get words that come to us from God. Most of the time we hear words like altruistic. Those words, well, what they mean is it's not expecting anything in return from God, or God not expecting anything in return from us. And what we also find in the literature of God or his books, we find that God has an endless love for all of his creation. And we know that as fact because it's out there. It's the one thing that we know of God is that he loves us. But it seems that we need to have some kind of validation to know that God loves us. It's a human nature. We seek validation. But why do we seek validation? One of the reasons we may seek validation, it's like kind of a guide to tell us whether we are on the right track or not. So one of the reasons is to know if God loves me is to have the awareness of moving in the right direction. So we know that, for instance, maybe our parents might shout at us if we do something wrong. We know that that's not the direction we should be going in. So we have a physical feedback loop, but with God, it's a bit different and it's a bit more subtle. So we don't really understand whether we are doing the right things or not the right things. And therefore we need the validation to know if God loves us. So why do we seek validation? Seems to be, it's a self-improvement, because it's not about God and it's not even if God loves me. It's, we need to know whether God loves me to know whether I'm improving in my life. So that seems to be the battle. It seems to be, we want validation so that we know whether we are making self-improvement. And I think that's what God's basic method is. It's to make you special instead of, so the question was to experience the validation of being special. But God's method is very, very beautiful, is that he makes you special so that you, he makes you special with these elevated directions so that you can validate yourself rather than constantly seeking validation from others. It would be very, how could I say, wrong if God were the one to like validate you all the time. And can you imagine a world where if God did speak to you, I know in today's world, if somebody gives you a compliment or somebody tells you you're doing good at something, we quickly become aware of how good we're doing at something, and then we relax off. So if you imagine if the divine was speaking to us, how difficult our lives would be. So I think the beauty of seeking God's validation is that he makes you strong enough to, and improves you so much to such an extent that you validate yourself. And he also gives you the tools to do this. He gives you knowledge, and he allows you the opportunity to have remembrance. I think those are the two key things in having love for God. Remembrance validates your love for God and also reinforces his love for you. And knowledge, through knowledge, we understand the nature of the self and God, which helps us better improve ourselves and which helps with the self-improvement process. So that's what I have to say about God and how God loves us, and especially validating yourself, becoming so strong in God's directions that you yourself don't need to seek validation from anything or any entity, even if it may be God. You become so strong and you become so self-improved that you are your own validation. That's what I have
Wow.
to say.
Thank you, Kirshlan. I think we all feel that God's love is such that it actually makes us independent of him. It empowers
Yeah.
us to such an extent. And that's so beautiful, because that is a sign of true love, because you are allowing the person to be themselves. So thank you so much, and hope the journey continues fervently and powerfully as it is. So take care.
Thank you.
Thanks. And so we'll have another opportunity to perhaps feel what Brother Kirshan was saying, that how is God empowering you so you become totally complete within yourself, and you become so strong that you can stand strong and tall. So we have a few moments of reflection, and we can experiment with this thought. So I trust that you had a beautiful reflection and could feel how God sees the best and the highest that is in you. So I'd like to invite Sister Belinda, who's also been a yogi for many, many years. And perhaps something that aptly describes Sister Belinda is, when you look at a rose and it is just so beautiful, you don't have to say anything about the rose, but it just offers its beauty, its fragrance, its care, its love. And so watching Sister Belinda on this path through the years, I feel like that rose just becomes, more beautiful and fragrant. And so lovely to have you with us, Sister Belinda. So a question, you surrendered to this non-physical love. How do you build faith in an intangible? How do you build faith in the intangible to that extent? You can share with us.
Thank you so much, Sister Kalpana. Such a beautiful subject of this evening's program. And I was just thinking how every relationship has so many different facets. If you think about any relationship, it's not a static thing. It goes through different phases. And so I was reflecting on this question of, well, the question is faith in the intangible, but I think it also means trust in the intangible. And one facet of this very extraordinary relationship with the one who is invisible and subtle is actually something I've experienced that is very, very practical. The first time that I experienced this, I had just come to the knowledge. I was 34 years old. I was extremely happy because I felt that what I had been searching for had been found. But at the same time, there was a lot of opposition to the path that I was choosing. And I remember one particular day when I had been the brunt of a lot of arguments and dissatisfaction. And I remember sitting down in my little meditation spot, and I started to form a question in my mind. And the question was, God, if this is really what you want me to do, and before I could finish the thought, the answer came, because the end of the thought was, please give me a sign. And I will never forget that day. As the thought was emerging, the experience was so physical. It felt as if the heavens opened and someone poured a giant bucket of peace over me. It was so powerful that I felt as if I would melt into the floor. That was the first time that I had had such an instant and loud signal from God. And that was before I had had time to really develop a relationship of faith and trust. But it was the starting point of developing and experiencing a most profound sense that God had my absolute interest in his heart. And you know, in the stories, the legends, there are stories of individuals who are given boons by the gods. and they may be given 1 or 2 or 3. And the boon is such that whatever you wish for, that God has to fulfill that. But my experience has been over these years that the boons are limitless. There have been a few incidences in my life. That was the first one I just described. But there were subsequent ones too, where in desperation, I had called out to God. And the response was the same. It was absolutely instant. And I mean, we don't have time for those stories, but I found myself on occasion in these very desperate situations. And the response was always instant. So these are very practical things. And of course, in a relationship with God, as we have heard this evening, there are so many subtle nuances to that relationship. But when God does something very practical, either when you're in a lot of emotional pain and instantly that pain is removed, it builds a kind of, I can't use this word faith, it's trust. It's trust that no matter what, your beloved is going to take care of you, is going to be there for you. And so when you go through life with that feeling, there's so much lightness. There's such a feeling of being carefree, because God Himself has got your back, no matter what. And this is one facet that I'm speaking about now, which has been so obvious that you just can't ignore it. But of course, there is the subtle dimension, and just a very deep feeling at the moment in my heart that this is my only birth in which I have the opportunity to understand and know God in all His beauty and greatness. And I just feel so deeply grateful, because as I know myself better, that inner eye opens to be able to appreciate the wonder of God. And as you appreciate the wonder of God, so you appreciate the wonder of every soul, every single soul. And so the beauty is that God's vision for us is of total equality. And His gift to us is that we are able to have that vision of equality for every single soul. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Belinda. I think it just made me feel how important that trust that you developed in God, but equally so, it's like that self-trust returns, and that then allows the journey to become deeper and more powerful. So thank you for sharing from the heart, really appreciated. And a very big thank you to everyone. There's so many wonderful experiences each one shared, and I'm likening it to, different color threads of a tapestry, and each one's experience at the right point, adding to this beautiful tapestry. And as we look at the complete picture, something so wonderful that we can really hold dear to our hearts and really forge this beautiful connection with the divine, because the divine understands us very uniquely, and I think we just need a little bit of time and opportunity to connect to the divine and see the magic and the wonder that really happens, as we connect. And they say, God is just a thought away. You just have to create a thought, and God doesn't need a specific place or time or, a venue. Wherever you are, you can make that connection and you can feel the presence of the divine. So a very big thank you also to all the technical, souls who took care of the technical elements of this program, the team who put the content, etc., together. And a big thank you to each of you for joining us this evening. So enjoy the rest of the evening. But as we close, just use this beautiful moment to reconnect with that source and that divine one, and know how that divine one really has a very special place, or keeps a very special place in their heart for you. And each one holds a unique and special place. So take care and have a beautiful rest of the evening. Om Shanti.
Om Shanti. Thank you, everyone.
Om
Shanti, and thank you.
I feel it now. It's all around me. A silent voice I can't deny. A mother's arms, how they surround me. They sing the beauty of my life.
It will last forever. It will never fade away. Never cause me pain. This love, this love.
I close my eyes. It takes me over. A memory deep down in my soul. And safe from harm, to be beside you. A light will shine upon the world.
It will last forever. It will never fade away. Never cause me pain. This love, this love.
It will last forever. It will never fade away. Never cause me pain.